Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week we explore whether or not you can use caulk instead of grout in a ceramic tile shower. We'll share with you a number of concerns on that one. Also, we check in with Chelsea Lipford-Wolf, who has a brand new web episode that might surprise you, how you can do an entire project without using a screw or a nail. Also, when you're faced with decisions on flooring, what is really the best, hardwood floor or luxury vinyl planks? They sure are popular. We'll give you our opinion. And also, you have a garage door. Is it making a lot of noise? We can tell you what to do to kind of quieten things down a little bit. And Joe, what about a simple solution?
Well, Danny, you know that tubes of caulk and sealant are not cheap these days. And after you snip off the tip, how do you keep it from getting hard? How do you seal that tip? Well, I've got a simple solution that shows how to do that.
I want to hear that one. Hey, let's get started. We certainly want you to engage with us anytime and go to the Today's Homeowner Hotline, 800-946-4420, which is where Brandon is right now from Colorado. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so you're in the middle of a bathroom remodeling. Tell us what you're up against.
Well, I've got some large format tiles, 12 by 24, and I hired a tile contractor, and he is recommending that I use a silicone caulking instead of grout on the grout lines, not just in the corners, but throughout the entire shower. And my grout lines are about 1/16 of an inch. And everything in my body is telling me no.
It's always good to listen to your body, Brandon.
Yeah, I wonder what the reason for it is. I'll tell you though, we've got the authority on tile right here with Joe Truini. Wrote one of the best ceramic tile and different type of tile installation books in the country. Joe, have you run across something like this? I mean, a lot of times we'll use a flexible caulk when you're maybe have some tile running up to a tub or something that's real stationary. That grout tends to roll out of there sometimes. But, Joe, what would you say on a shower wall like this?
Yeah, Brandon, my body's saying the same thing, and this is not my bathroom. I'm not sure. I mean, unless he gives you a good and this is a tile contractor, and I'm sure this isn't the first time he's done it, and I'm not really sure why. It's probably not any cheaper. Maybe it's a little easier, but I'm at a loss for words. As Danny mentioned, ordinarily you only use caulk where the tile butts up against a different type of material. That's why when you're tiling the wall around a bathtub, where that last course or the first course, a tile that sits right on the bathtub, you usually put caulk in there, not grout, because the tub moves, especially when it's filled with water and someone stands in it, has a tendency to set down a little bit. And the grout's is harder, and the caulk is more forgiving. It's more flexible. You only have 1/16 inch wide joints, which is about as thin as I've ever seen. So you would have to use an unsanded grout, or you can try a single component grout. Custom Building Products makes one called Fusion Pro. And that one actually you can use for filling joints as small as 1/16 up to 1/2 inch. So you can use it on most jobs. I don't have any good reason to why you'd want to use caulk unless he can give you one, but I wouldn't do it. I would use, and the other thing that grout does, because it's hard, almost as hard as the tile, is it supports the edge of the tile more than the caulk would. And since these are big tiles, I think these are like 12 by 24. I think you said, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
He should have used a thin-set mortar that's called LFT, large format tile, which is specifically designed for larger tiles. So if he did that, which I assume he did. I mean, I would definitely use grout, the right grout, not caulk.
You know, something over the years I've always fallen back on is the old industry standard. You know, if you were to Google that,
right,
industry standard for ceramic tile and grout, you will not find silicone in that equation. So I always go back to that, even though, you know, a skilled tiler like this, maybe that's been successful for them in the past, but the pros, the industry leaders that dictate these industry standards say, no, you got to use grout, unsanded grout for that. So that's what I think I would go with.
I think that's what I'm going with, too.
Good, Brandon. There's one other thing I just thought of. If you have to, at some point in the future, remove what's between those tiles, even though grout's a lot harder, it's actually easier to remove because you can just scratch it out, grind it out. With caulk, imagine pulling caulk out from all those joints.
Yeah.
It would take months, and I'm not sure you'd even get it all out, and then what? So I think there are a lot of reasons why you should go with grout, not caulk.
Well, that answers my question. I do have a follow-up just real quick on the corners where the shower meets at the 90-degree angle. I've seen, things on the internet as well, as far as grouting those. My direction to him was to try to get grout into those corners as well, and then follow up with, a grout-colored silicone to cover those, just to make sure that those gaps are covered. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think you'd need both. Yeah, excuse me, Dan. I don't think you'd need both. I don't think you'd need grout covered with caulk or vice versa. Okay. And again, if this tile is butting up against the shower, which is whatever it's made out of, unless it's made out of tile, I would put in caulk in that situation.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Hey, we always want to hear from you, and email is a very easy way to reach out to us, todayshomeowner.com/ask. That's what Mary in Pennsylvania did. Just a few days ago, she wrote us and said, "Hi, Danny, I have a question about my lawn. We spend countless hours and quite a bit of money to keep the grass green all summer long. Now that the weather is turning colder, what should we do to make sure the lawn survives the winter and comes back green next spring? Thanks so much. We listen to your show every Saturday morning on WNPV 1440 in Lansdale, Pennsylvania." We appreciate that, Mary. And yes, it is a good idea to really think about your lawn and think about some of the things that you need to do to get ready for winter. This is a good time of the year to do any aerating, to go ahead and use an aerator to really penetrate the surface of the grout and kind of loosen it up a little bit. And then you can backdress it with some good topsoil, or sometimes a lot of people use sand and a few other amendments. And Joe, I wonder what are some of the other things that Mary might think about doing in her lawn.
Well, besides aerating, she'd want to continue mowing the lawn and watering the lawn right straight through to fall. And then they usually recommend the last two cuttings, you lower the mowing deck a little bit. You never remove more than a third of the blade of grass, but you want to lower it, and you want to cut it relatively low the very last time. And aerate, you want to rake up any leaves, of course. Any matted leaves will kill the grass, so you got to get all the leaves up. And you might want to put down a fertilizer or a broadleaf herbicide now in the fall. Most people think that lawns are dying back, but what they're actually doing is they're absorbing as much energy as possible right now. So now is really a good time to take care of your lawn to ensure that come spring it'll be healthy and eventually turn back green.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think about it when you might end up with a little bit of, snow and sleet and that type of thing in the Pennsylvania area, but certainly well worth some being proactive like that. And Mary, we certainly appreciate you listening to the show there in Pennsylvania, as well as sending us an email. We're very happy to have on the phone my daughter, Chelsea Lipford Wolf from Checkin In with Chelsea. How are you today, dear?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing
great. Hi, Chelsea.
We're doing fine. You're out doing a little videotaping today, I understand, but you recently finished up a brand new episode for Checkin In with Chelsea. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, I love creating projects that help you organize, but also kind of add to the decor of your house. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did for our playroom. We had this rickety old clothes rack for the kids' dress-up clothes. Mm-hmm. And so I built a brand new one out of just some simple 1x2s, mm-hmm. and made it a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit more substantial and sturdy than what we had before. And the cool thing, I like to challenge myself, and I built it without any fasteners. So it's all held together with tight bond wood glue.
Is that right?
And yeah, and so since it's an interior project, I used their original wood glue in the red bottle. So it's all the plans and the how-to steps are online now at checkininwithchelsea.com. So you can see it. And I even finished off the end. I used a wooden dowel for the actual rod, and capped the ends of the dowels with a little white ball of foam.
Oh, I see.
The craft foam that you get at the craft store.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I just used some tight bond glue and popped those on the ends for a little decorative accent.
How about that? And the thing about it is, if you're painting something like that, it's great that you never have to worry about any of the nails or screws and trying to, recess those, putty those, and things like that. If you can hold it all together with glue, I guess you use some clamps of some kind.
Yeah, I clamped it together, and also the dowels kind of hold the 1x2 legs together as well. But I decided not to paint or stain mine because I can always do that later. So it's just a natural wood color. But that's the nice thing about using the Titebond wood glue too, is that it's sandable. If you use a little bit too much glue, you can sand it off and still stain your project without messing up the color of the stain.
Right. Well, that's great. And so many people that have the little dress up clothes and so forth, like they just have them just thrown in a basket or something like that. But I bet the kids love having that to be able to hang them up and see what they have.
That's right. And the trick to making it all look nice is matching hangers.
Matching hangers. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think those foam balls on the end were a great idea, because sooner or later your son Gus is going to yank that thing over, and if it bonks his sister on the head, she won't even hardly feel it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's probably going to happen.
and the thing that I think a lot of people may not realize about the glues, that the way Titebond is formulated, these wood glues, when they're formulated to soak into the wood grain, and when they dry, they're actually harder and stronger than the wood itself. So if you ever glue two pieces of wood together and try pulling it apart, you don't need nails or screws half the time, other than maybe to hold it in place till the glue dries. Because once that glue is dry, you'll split the wood long before that joint fails because of the glue itself. So yeah, I think that's a great spot to use it.
Yep. So all the details and the pretty pictures are at on my website, checkinwithchelsea.com.
And you need to check in with Chelsea on a regular basis. She's providing some little sneak peek of some of the things that are going to be happening with the big Chelsea Ranch Revival renovation that we're starting very soon. She's already got a few preliminary things happening, and I know that you're knee-deep in plans and ideas and inspiration, so we look forward to hearing more about that. So get back to taping and smile pretty.
All right, will do.
Right now, we're going to Illinois. Lisa is on the line with a question about flooring. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
All right, great. So you're trying to figure it out, trying to think hardwood floors, vinyl plank floors. Tell us what you're thinking.
I am. Currently, about a year ago, we had vinyl plank flooring put in our basement, which we love. Seems to be scratch resistant, waterproof, looks great. On our main floor, we do currently have hardwood floors. They're about 13 years old, and you can tell. They're very worn, dented, scratched. So we do need to do something about them. So we're trying to decide, do we, sand, stain, and revarnish our current hardwood floors, or do we put in vinyl plank flooring? I'm kind of leaning towards the vinyl plank flooring, but my husband thinks the hardwood.
Oh,
we kind of
boy.
asked some real estate agent friends of ours, and we said, from a resale standpoint, what is best? Are homeowners looking to buy homes with hardwood floors, or do they like the vinyl plank flooring? And they kind of were mentioning the hardwood floors. So we're torn. So we're kind of wondering what your advice would be.
Okay, we do a lot of marriage counseling here. That's no problem. We're glad to, we're glad to help you with that.
37 years already, so we're pretty good.
Oh.
Of course, Danny didn't say whether we're very good marriage counselors, but we do give advice.
Well,
okay.
Well, Lisa, I've been married 37 years as well, so by
great.
now we've got it figured out, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
We do.
I would. My initial thought is the same as the opinion you're getting from the realtors, because traditionally hardwood floors is considered one of the most durable, higher end floors, and if the floors that you have are sandable and refinishable, which you'd have to get an expert to look at it. So I have to look real close to make sure that it's not too close to the tongue of the tongue and groove configuration in order to sand it. But and of course everybody's going to say the sanding of hardwood floors are quite a mess and so forth. But I think I would go that route, even though I'm a big fan of the luxury vinyl tile, and I have it in several areas of a home I have, and it's just fantastic. Yeah. But when you're talking about resale value and just that upper level look of a floor, it's really hard to beat the hardwood floor. Joe, what do you feel?
Yeah, Lisa, I agree with Danny. I think that hardwood is the way to go. If you have it down there and you've liked it all these years, but it's just worn, and I assume this is a solid hardwood floor, probably oak or something like that. Is that true?
You know what? Actually, when it was installed, we've actually had it for about 17 years now, believe it or not.
Right.
And I know when it was installed, the installer said, I think it might be an engineered hardwood floor, and he said
Okay.
you're probably going to get 1, maybe 2 sandings out of it.
There you go. That's
So
it. That's right. Yeah.
I don't think it's solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's engineered wood, then you're only going to get 1 because the wood that you see on the top layer is only going to be about 1/8 of an inch thick. So, but they are refinishable. And as far as it being a mess, I have solid oak hardwood floor, traditional oak strip flooring in our house, and I had it refinished once. And when you find a guy that has a dustless system,
That's right.
They have these
Okay.
vacuums that hook up to the sanders, and they have a big hose, for lack of a better word, almost like a duct that goes out a nearby window. And there was almost no dust.
Oh, that's great.
He didn't mask off. He closed a few doors. That's about it. And it was amazing. I was a little skeptical, but there was virtually no dust. And it's quite a bit of work.
Yeah, that was going to be my concern, too, because I told my husband, I said, do you realize if they have to sand and stain and varnish, I said, that's going to be like a mess for days. So I'm glad to hear that.
This is where our marriage counseling comes in. Don't let your husband do it. Otherwise, it will be a mess.
For sure. Oh, great. Well, I actually have a handyman page in our area. I've had it for about 7 years now. I have about 7,000 area. There's handyman, contractors, homeowners, and I started the page because my husband is not a handyman. So it's a great resource I have that, there's all kinds of different trades on there. And
that's great.
Smart.
I vet the site of only, good guys on there, and it's been a good resource. So
Good.
I will go to the page and I will try to find someone that can take care of my hardwood floors. But I really appreciate your knowledge and insight because I've been really struggling with it and my husband as well. So I appreciate it.
Time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot, How Doers Get More Done. More and more homeowners are taking on their own tile projects these days, and one of the reasons is that materials are getting easier and easier to use. Simple Grout, pre-mixed grout from Custom Building Products is a great example of that. It's a no-mix, no-mess alternative to traditional grout. This sanded, shrink, and crack-resistant formula also resists common household stains. Simple Grout can be used with ceramic, mosaic, porcelain, and stone tile, as well as granite, for grout joints from 1/16 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. It's designed for interior use only, and it's suitable for wet areas like tub surrounds, shower floors, and shower walls. And because it's so easy to use, it's also great for grout restoration projects. For more information on Simple Grout, go to HomeDepot.com. We actually used some of this just last week. Chelsea and a homeowner put up a beautiful mosaic backsplash in a kitchen, and this is just great because it's resistant to a lot of the cracking and so forth, and certainly the stains. It was perfect for that kitchen area.
Yeah, it's called scoop and spread. No mixing involved.
That's right, exactly. Talking about emails, let's jump right on one. Anton in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Our condo has popcorn ceilings that I would like to scrape off. I listen to your radio show all the time, and a few months ago, I remember you recommending spraying the ceiling with some kind of liquid before scraping. Can you tell me what to spray onto the popcorn? Well, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. The simplest is actually to use a wallpaper remover solution. Commonly, what is that? Diff. Diff. And you just mix it with hot water in a pump-up sprayer, and you spray it right on the popcorn, and you really want to saturate it. You want to get it really wet. That means it's going to be dripping, which means you really need some plastic on the ground. Now, you got to be careful with the plastic. You can slip and fall very easily on it, so maybe some drop cloths and plastic will help make that a little bit safer. And then I'll tell you that little tool that we had. I remember the company
scraper,
is Homax.
Homax, yep.
Homax has this coolest little scraper for popcorn that you actually put one of those little plastic bags on it, and then it scrapes it. It's a little safer than using some of the sheetrock tools that a lot of people use, so that you're not as likely to gouge the ceiling. But that works pretty good. I've used that myself a number of times.
Yeah, it's just a 12-inch long steel blade, and it has a rectangular metal frame around it. And the frame is for clipping on a plastic bag. And then you just put this on an extension handle and you just scrape the ceiling, and the popcorn, which is a soggy mess at this point, falls into the bag. Now, I will say that the bag holds way more than the
Right.
frame will hold. So don't fill the
Exactly.
bag up.
Yeah,
You won't be
that's
able to hold it up, and then bag might rip. So you scrape. So the bag's maybe a quarter full. I don't think I'd even have it a half full. Wouldn't recommend even filling up halfway, because if it rips, then you kind of defeat the purpose. But it scrapes, and you'll be surprised. You'll catch at least 95% of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through quite a few bags, but it's still, even in a small room, it's the only way to do it.
And if you have a garbage can, just real handy there, an open garbage can, then you can just dump that texture right into the garbage can and keep using the same bag for at least a little while. But it does work very, very effectively. The key thing, it needs to be saturated. So don't hold back, even if it's dripping off the ceiling. Just let it drip all over you. That's part of the fun. And maybe wear a hat, and I'd be able to help you a little bit. And I'll tell you, the disposable crawl suits is something that also can be very handy.
Yeah, and I just did want to mention that any popcorn ceiling that was sprayed on prior to about 1970 may or may not contain asbestos. So you should run a little asbestos test, just scrape a little off, and send it to a lab, have it checked out, just to be on the safe side.
Hey, here's another email from Kevin in California. We've got a lot of great listeners there all over the West Coast there. It says, "Hi, Danny. We have a large sliding glass door that's very heavy and hard to open. In fact, the handle broke off the last time I tried yanking the door open." Oh, boy. That's no fun.
He's writing to us because he's stuck in the house.
Yeah, he's stuck inside. The wheels at the bottom of the door seem to be working. I lubricated the tracks, but that didn't really help. Do you have any suggestions? Well, I'll tell you, I have dealt with a lot of this, and I have one glass sliding door in a place I have that's extremely heavy, and you have to watch those handles all the time. They get loose. You have to tighten them up as much as you can.
Yep.
But when he says lubricating the track, I got a hunch he probably thought he was lubricating the track with a multi-purpose lubricant. That probably the most common one is WD-40. That's not really what you want to use. That's what everybody uses, but that doesn't really help, because it really can cause more problems than it solves, right, Joe?
It gums up the works. Yeah,
Exactly.
Anything like that is going to collect dust and dirt. You don't usually have it. If you're going to use anything, and you don't ordinarily have to, you want to use a dry spray, a dry silicone sealant spray, but I don't think you even need that. Those wheels, those we call them wheels, they're rollers, are adjustable.
Right.
I've very seldom had luck adjusting them once they're old. So he may have to, what I would recommend is replace them. Pull off the door that rolls, lay it on a couple of sawhorses. You can get the replacements, pull out the old one, go to the home center, get an exact match, and just replace it. And then at that point, you can really inspect the track, because the door's off. And if anything is bent or cracked, you can kind of straighten it out. So that's what I would recommend, just replacing that hardware. And then, of course, reattaching the handle.
Of course, when you take that panel off, you basically are lifting it straight up and then pulling the bottom in. Carefully put them up on a sawhorse, or maybe throw a drop cloth over your bed and set it there. And then really look at that roller, because a lot of times it'll be so gummed up and have so much debris around it, it's just not working like it should. So you may be able to clean it up, use the vacuum cleaner to pull any of that debris out, and then use the silicone spray. You might not have to replace the whole thing. It might just need a good, thorough cleaning. That happens so much. So thank you, Kevin. Hope that helped you there in California to be able to make a glass sliding door work just a little bit better. There's so many things around your home that are constantly moving, constantly breaking, constantly need a little upgrade here and there. And that's why information about your home and good current home improvement information is something that should be of interest to everyone. And one of the areas of the home that we like to talk about is the simple little ways that you can improve your home. And we cover it each week here on our Simple Solution. What do you have for us, Joe?
Well, Danny, earlier in the show, we were talking about caulking and sealants and grout and that kind of thing. So this simple solution has to do with that. Tubes of caulk and sealant are not cheap these days, so how do you keep them fresh once you snip off the tip? Well, here's one way. Go to the home center and you can get a length of tubing, clear plastic tubing, and it comes in different diameters, so that the size you want is 5/8 inch diameter by 1/2 inch inside diameter. Okay, so it's sold as as a 5/8 inch diameter tubing, but what you're looking for is an inside diameter of 1/2 inch, because you need that to slip over the spout, the plastic spout on the end of the tube. Then just use a pair of snips and cut off a section of tubing, maybe like 4 or 5 inches long, and then heat one end of the tubing. I used an electric heat gun, which works really well because you can control it a little more. Just heat it up until it's almost at a point of melting. Then put it in a vise, or if you can use a pair of pliers as well. I happen to put it in a metal vise. Put it in a vise and clamp it closed. What happens is you're heat sealing that end. And now, before you go to use it, and this is important, blow into the open end. Because I did that the first time I did this, and I could feel air coming out, so it wasn't fully sealed. So if that happens, then just reheat it and clamp it again. But ordinarily, I've done this maybe 4 or 5 times. Only the first time did I have an issue with it. But anyway, blow in the end, make sure it's completely airtight, and then that's it. You just take it, and after you use your tube of caulk, just slip it, just force it onto the open end of the nozzle. It only has to slip on maybe 1/2 inch or so, and that's it. It seals out the air 100%.
Oh, boy, that's great. I'm going to go home and try that on that $26 tube of caulking I just recently purchased because I wrap tape all around it, but I've done that before, and sometimes that just doesn't work out very well. It
leaks. So. Yeah, I've tried every imaginable thing, and some of them work, some of them don't, but this has worked every time.
And when you're talking about that clear tubing, that stuff is really inexpensive. I mean, and you don't need much of it. You could buy, a couple feet and take care of every caulking tube you'd ever need right there.
Yeah, so some hardware stores sell it in bulk, so you can just buy a foot, and in other places they sell it in a package, but and then maybe they're like 15 feet long, which is way more than you need, but even that, it's still pretty affordable.
Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. This one comes from Georgia. Betty Jane asked, I have a solid oak custom-made cabinet with a lot of grease and dirt from 25 years, especially over the stovetop. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease and a strong cleaner to get these things clean, but I don't want to take off all of the finish. We will not be refinishing it. Well, Joe, we know one way to kind of cut through that grease, and it's something that we've shared with homeowners for many years. Why don't you explain about getting out the old rubber gloves?
Talk about the sponge in the microwave?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do is you take firstly, you're right, you have to wear gloves so you don't burn your hands, and you want to get a scouring sponge, wet it, and put it in a microwave for just a few seconds so it's warm, and then you can use that, dip it into, you can do lemon juice or a cleaner, and then try scrubbing the cabinet. Now, Betty Jane mentioned she didn't want to take the finish off, and this will not take the finish off, but depending on the age of these cabinets, you may discover that there's some bare wood showing anyway, in which case, you might as well scrub it. You're not going to harm the finish because it's already missing. And there are definitely commercial cleaners for cabinets. Gugon makes one, and there's an orange oil cleaner that's available. I think it's called Howard Products Orange Oil Polish or something like that. That's a good cleaner. But if you want to try something homemade, you can dip a scrub brush or an old toothbrush in some warm water and baking soda. Try scrubbing with that. You can mix coconut oil with baking soda into a paste, scrub it with that. White vinegar, a 50-50 mix of vinegar and warm water. Put in a bottle, spray bottle, and mist the cabinet and scrub with a scouring sponge. You can try almost any of those. The grease, depending on how long it's been up there, and it sounds like Betty Jane has it throughout the kitchen, it may take a little while, but you can eventually cut through it. And then you'll have to evaluate whether these cabinets need to be refinished at all. And maybe you just need to put on a new coat of polyurethane. Hopefully it won't need to be restained as well.
And we would encourage you to drop by todayshomeowner.com. There's a lot of information about refinishing cabinets. If you decide to, take the route of painting the cabinets, there's a lot of information there that can really help you. And you kind of make me chuckle a little bit. I remember a few weeks ago, Joe, you recommending coconut oil to someone that lives in Alaska. For some reason, that just threw me off.
It threw me off too, but I'm in Connecticut. Then I realized, wait a minute, he's closer to Hawaii than I am. A lot closer. Maybe he can just go out to the beach and wait for one to float ashore. I don't know.
You just never know. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and we want to remind you that you can send a question or comment in anytime by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Thanks again for all the great reviews we've been getting, and we look forward to being with you real soon for another Today's Homeowner podcast. I'm Danny Lipford, along with my buddy Joe Troini. We'll talk to you soon.